Hello there, my beautiful bookish souls, and welcome to something a little bit different. I figured that seeing as it was the start of the month and I'm in the process of planning my new month in my bullet journal, that I might as well just film it and you can plan along with me. So I thought what I might do is first of all show you the yearly pages that I've already had set up in my bullet journal, and then I will show you my monthly pages, and then at the end I might show you some of the pages that I've tried in the past that didn't work, just so that you know that this is always, a process of improvement, and that it's okay to trial and error things and realize that certain things don't work. So first up we have my yearly pages. This was my yearly title page that I was supposed to write on, but I haven't done that yet because, as usual, I never actually come up with anything to put on it. First page that I have is my future log, and this has been a wonderful idea, and I'm so glad that I decided to add it to my bullet journal because it has been so useful. So the idea for the future log is that you write down anything that you know is coming up at some point later in the year that isn't in the immediate month at hand, so that when you're actually writing the pages for the month that is at hand, you can flick back to your future log and check for any events that might have slipped your mind that are coming up in that month. I also have a little sticky note here which has movies for me to keep an eye out for when they come out that I want to watch. Usually this ends up covered in sticky notes as the year goes by, as I find more movies and shows and things that I want to sort of pay attention to. Second page is birthdays, which is a little bit smudged, but it's still there. So just a square for every month and dates for birthdays. This is my daily routine page because I'm a stickler for schedules, and if I don't have a very tight routine, I very quickly turn into a massive puddle of stress and anxiety and have a meltdown. This is a page for my weekly sort of routine where I usually block out the things that are happening on each evening of the week, but I actually mucked up the timetable for this and have stuck another page over the top, and I haven't gotten around to writing the new one, but it's there ready to go. Then we have my New Year's resolutions list, and yes, I have a lot of them, and most of them aren't necessarily too over the top. They're just things for me to keep in mind. I've done one, and that's the Start a Booktube channel. I've managed to complete that resolution, but I haven't completed much more. Then we have 2 pages for my quote collection. So this is where if I come across a quote while I'm at work or reading or somewhere where I don't have my quote journal, I write it down here to remind me to transfer it into my quote journal. Currently there's only one there. And then we have my budget, which is sort of just a breakdown of all the expenses that I know will be coming out of my accounts on a regular basis. And now we're getting onto the monthly pages. So I've just started changing the setup for my bullet journal in recent times, actually. So I used to actually draw a full calendar. I would write out the days of the week and have a proper calendar set up. But I found that having to do that stopped me from actually doing the proper calendar setup. I often would not set up my bullet journal for the month because I was kind of overwhelmed at the thought of having to do that particular setup. So instead, what I've started doing recently is just writing the days of the week down the side. So that's what I do for first of the monthly pages, and that page is just for general events that I need to remember for the month. So anything, whether it's social or work related or just general, will go on this page. The next page that I have is the same kind of monthly breakdown but for my YouTube channel. I like to have a separate page where I organize what I want to post for my Novel Thoughts channel for the month. So monthly page number 3 is exactly the same setup again, but this time for my bills, because I also like to keep track for the month of what money is going to be going out of any of my accounts and when. So this is my bills page. I'm not going to write down all of the bills right now because I can't remember the dates for them off the top of my head. And the final monthly page that I also like to do before I get into my sort of weekly breakdown is my spending log. And I've already drawn this before explaining it to you because it's kind of easier to explain when you can actually see the columns there. So this is where I write down anything that I spend money on that basically isn't groceries or household items, and I do that to make sure that I'm not spending money on too many things that are just useless and that I instantly regret. As the month goes by, I write down the date, what I bought, and the price, and then at the end of the month I look back over everything and basically just give it either a tick or a cross as to whether I'm happy that I bought that or whether that was a regrettable purchase. That is my monthly setup. So now we're into the weekly setup. This is the setup that I generally tend to use. I actually only use a weekly setup in my day-to-day life. So I've got my weekly sort of calendar, and in here I'll write down any general events that I need to remember. So anything for work, anything for salsa, anything socially, or perhaps sometimes bills and things I'll write down here. And here I'll do my channel planning. So this is where I'll write down when I want to film or when I want to post videos. Here I've got my to-do list, which is split into general and novel thoughts again. I've got a section for me to write down when I arrive at work and when I leave work each day. Then I have a note section. So this is where I write down, say, like a phone number or anything that I need to keep track of that I don't want to clutter up everything else with. And then I have a removable sticky note that I use to write down anything I think of that I need to buy. I guess the only other thing to explain is the way that I actually sort of notate my to-do list tasks. And for that, I'll show you the icon sort of breakdown that I have at the front. So I tend to use squares for tasks. I'll put little exclamation marks beside anything that is a priority. A little dot point for any notes that aren't actually priority things. Circles for events. And I've actually started also using triangles. Sometimes I use a triangle for an appointment and a circle for an event. Then for each to-do list task, I'll draw a line through it from corner to corner once it's started. I'll shade it in if it's finished. I'll put a cross through it if it's cancelled. And I'll put an arrow through it if it's been migrated to a new list. So if there's an outstanding task here, then I'll draw an arrow in it when I write up my next week. So I know when I'm looking back over previous weeks whether or not something has been migrated or whether it's been forgotten. So now let's have a look at some of the pages that didn't work out for me. So the index page I don't really use anymore. So when I start my next bullet journal, I won't be using an index page. This was supposed to be my reading list, but my reading list is way too large to ever actually fit into a notebook, so there's no point in doing that. So last year I also had a gift ideas page, which I've scrapped this year because I never write it down. I also had a page that I thought I would do sort of checklists for what I need to keep constantly in pantry and first aid and cleaning routine, which I never used. I also thought I'd have a savings tracker, but I never used that either. And I also thought I would do a year in pixels where I'd colour in a different pixel for each mood throughout the year, but clearly that never happened at all. So then, yeah, this was my old monthly setup, which never worked. I never really enjoyed having to draw out these calendars. It took too much time and effort for me. It was much easier for me just to write the numbers down the side. I also used to track habits, but that doesn't happen anymore because most of the time I would write a habits tracker up here and I just wouldn't actually fill it out. So there was no point in doing that either. And I also 1 month tried to do a period tracker to track whether or not I remembered to take my pill, but I also never actually ended up doing that. See, most of the time I draw off the pages, write the headings on them, and never actually fill out the page because it was just too much. As you can also see, my bullet journal hasn't always been very pretty. Often I end up just writing things the way they are. It's only this year, so since this year started, that I've started trying to actually make things look pretty and use stationery to make things look nice. So now I've started using sticky notes and things like that in it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's probably not particularly interesting. So now I'm going to go and do some of these things that I need to do. I will see you in another video very shortly, and until then, stay classic.
Hello.